So you own a property and it's in an HOA. Okay, you think, hey, no big deal. They're going to take better care of my property. It's worth every expense that I have on the HOA side. This may or may not be the case. And this week we experienced a couple of different scenarios with properties that we are selling that we had previously managed. And what we've experienced from that is that the HOAs, like I think I've alluded to like a couple weeks ago, I said something like, yeah, the HOAs are trying to grab every little bit of money that they can on the way out the door. And I was half joking, but this week we experienced it twice. Let me give you just a couple of quick examples and you'll know what I mean. Okay, so from an HOA standpoint, when you're selling a property, you provide an HOA addendum. And the HOA addendum gives a breakdown of the expenses that the HOA is going to charge typically whoever is going to be paying for it at the close of escrow. Now, the reason why I say that is because it's pretty much negotiable. You just have to negotiate it and know what each party is paying for, the seller or the buyer. Now, generally, you're going to find that there are going to be transaction fees, right? There are going to be disclosure fees. Now, the transaction fees, technically for the HOA, are fees that they're going to be charging you to put the transaction together and send, it's their fee, right? Disclosure fees are fees that they're going to charge you for putting together all of the HOA disclosures. This is traditionally a seller expense. And on the HOA addendum, it actually shows this is a seller expense on the negotiating page, essentially. So it's in hard font. It says seller pays disclosures because the seller is usually the one that is, getting the HOA to give us the disclosures so that we can basically put together the numbers and know how we're going to be able to negotiate them before we put the house on the market. Other additional fees are included buyers' reserves for basically paying down their HOA dues before they move in. They usually have to have like 2 months of HOA dues. And then you'll also find like the capital improvement fees. Capital improvement fees could be things that the HOA knows is coming. It has been agreed and decided upon and voted on from the HOA standpoint. And let's say it's a plumbing. They're going to need to redo the plumbing in a particular community, and they're charging each of the owners $1,000 over the next 12 months. So, what is that, 80 whatever dollars a month that they're going to be charging that. You can do it as a one-time fee, or they'll charge you monthly. Okay, in this case, that's going to come out on this HOA addendum as well as a capital improvement fee. What we saw this week was they're actually charging outside of those already agreed upon terms that is built into the HOA addendum. We saw that an HOA was charging additional fees as impounds that they're going to be impounding at the close of escrow that the buyer and seller had to negotiate as to who was paying these. This is $850. So it wasn't just all of a sudden somebody can come to the table at the end of the day and pay those. So that has to be agreed upon. And up front, if the seller is agreeing to pay for everything that hasn't been previously negotiated, then that's going to be a seller expense at the close of escrow. Here's why this is a good thing and also a bad thing. So first and foremost, from a bad standpoint, when HOAs charge this much, it keeps the prices down in a particular community, because if a seller was to make a buyer pay for that and they negotiate those terms, that $850 for somebody on, let's say, a small little condo, that could hurt. That's a lot of money for somebody coming to buy maybe a first-time home buyer. Now, if it's $1 million property, maybe that $850 isn't that big of a deal. But in the circumstances that we were dealing with, it's like, wait a minute, like that's a big expense. That's not something that people are traditionally looking at to negotiate when it comes to HOAs. So not the first time we've seen this from an HOA, adding just an additional fee on top of it to try to, not to say to sneaking things in there, but at the end of the day, like this isn't something that's been pre-negotiated and predetermined from a standpoint of what is typically charged from an HOA. This is just an add-on after the fact. So something to be aware of. If you're in an HOA, like really know what those HOA fees are going to be before you sell, because at the end of the day, that could be, a huge like gut punch or even deal killer if a buyer was responsible for paying everything else that was on that HOA list that wasn't predetermined, and now title gets them an $850 bill more than they thought they were going to be paying at the close of escrow, could absolutely squash the deal. More than that happened this week on the HOA side, but I wanted to introduce Miss Cherie. Thank you, Miss Cherie. Awesome.
Hello.
Now, if you've sold a house with us here in the last 2 months?
Yeah, about 2 months.
2 months. Then you've worked with Cherie. Cherie is amazing. She is the person who helps on the sales coordination side. So takes things over from when we're selling a property that we've managed. She'll take it on the sales side and actually make sure that the process happens. She keeps everybody on task. You do,
that's what I do.
Yeah, you do a lot. It's awesome. Cool. So Cherie, tell us about yourself.
So
real estate.
I've been in real estate now for 2 years. I got my license in June of 2022.
Nice.
So what got me into real estate is that my husband and I have goals to be investors ourselves and have our own portfolio.
Nice.
Whether that's flip and fix or fix and flips or long-term, short-term rentals, all those good things. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Why Capstone?
Because Capstone kind of is that. Right? Isn't that your motto? Isn't it for investors by investors?
Well, yeah. Nice.
Well, yeah.
I like how you spun that. That was good. Nice. I didn't even tee that up. I didn't even pay you to say that. That's cool.
Right?
Yeah, that was awesome. Okay, so your goals are to buy real estate. You're really, really good with clients. So feedback for Cherie already is, and I joke with Cherie all the time, but people want to talk to her more than they talk to me.